Hello there. Here we are with issue 30. This will be our bonus issue. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So in our little preview, we're going to talk about the Trade Federation Battleship. And so this is kind of interesting to some extent. So its overall size is pretty massive, right? So it's 3,100. Let me change my glasses here. Sorry. Its overall size is has a diameter of 3,170 meters. Its width is 3,009 meters. Its height is 1,000 meters. It's affiliated with the Trade Federation, of course. It's got 42 quad laser batteries and turbo lasers. It's got a Rendili star drive proton primary and 12 proton sublight drives. So those are only sublight. It doesn't talk about its hyperdrive. So you'd have to assume that it can do hyperdrive, but you're not seeing it here. It can obviously hold a crap ton of cargo and all that kind of stuff. So pretty interesting. So Trade Federation's LH-3210 cargo haulers only need a light modification to turn them into warships. So prior to everything that happened in the Phantom Menace, they were just cargo haulers, and of course it was done in secrecy. So that was a kind of a thing. I mean, the main thing was it's just taking around droids and stuff, so didn't have to really worry about a lot of crew space or anything like that because they could just put the droids in storage mode or whatever, right? So that's kind of a big thing. And so the big thing with these were that they were droid control ships. And of course, as part of being a droid control ship, they can launch a whole crap ton of the Vulture droids, which was their space fighters, right? So that was the big thing. And so one of the interesting things that it talks about was that, let's see if I can find it here. It talks about, oh, here we go, the droid control equipment. So this is the main thing that was really interesting. So let me go through this real quick. So it can carry 50 landing craft, 550 multi-troop transports, 6,250 armored assault tanks, and 1,500 platoon attack craft. So it can carry a lot of craft, and then of course those 50 landing craft and the troop transports would probably all have the droids in it and stuff. So that's pretty interesting. So pretty cool, I guess. One of the big things with it is it was only lightly armed. It had like 48, but I mean that's swung around, so it did have a lot of vulnerabilities with it. But you had to be gutsy enough to get close enough to it to actually cause any kind of serious damage to it. So the main thing was the droid control. So each droid control ship featured 2 large main antenna and 6 backup plus sensor equipment, including 1 main rectantenna, 2 auxiliaries, and 2 more sensors on the bridge. Around the perimeter of the ship went 16 receiver dishes that were configured to pick up transmissions from the droid units. Each of these receiver dishes had a pair of booster panels to cut out the noise or interference. So one of the big things with it was, see if I can find it here. It talks somewhere in here. It talks about. Oh, here we go. So I had the control for the droids was 16,500 meters, so it could reach quite a long ways. Basically, um, about 1 1/3 of the width of Earth. So it could transmit quite a ways, and it could also control all of those droids, simultaneously. All the droids would do nothing without the control ships there, at least initially. I don't know if they ever changed that or whatever, but the original design of the Trade Federation battleship were sketched out by Doug Chang, working to director George Lucas's desire for a ship whose look harkened back to the flying saucers of the 1950s Hollywood B movies. The split crescent outline of the outer ring evolved through the design process out of the need for it to have a distinct front and back. The final touch added by Lucas himself in a nod to a certain Imperial superweapon that was a ball-like bridge and command structure. So, um, yeah, so that's why they put this little notch there, is just so they could tell where the front and the back was. So this was actually kind of interesting too. The Neimoidians, which is this species, who were in effective control of the Trade Federation, appointed the captains who directed their ship. Neimoidian pilots were cyborgs who wore vocabulator and data goggles to allow them to communicate with the ship. So, yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And it's also important to note that Neimoidians were a bunch of big wussies, and that's why they would hide out on the bridge, and they were always chicken shits, essentially. So, interesting, I suppose. Now we're going to go to our part of our guide to the galaxy. We're going to be visiting Utapau. I don't know how to pronounce it. Utapau. So Utapau is a quiet world whose two native species have built a vertical society in the enormous sinkholes that dot the grassy, windswept plains of the planet. Though it was left alone during most of its existence, Utapau was the location of a historic Clone Wars battle. So the big thing with this planet is that there's not a lot of vegetation on the surface, mostly just grasslands and that kind of stuff. And all of the water is underground, and so it's got vast oceans underground. And because of that, it created all these sinkholes due to erosion and stuff, and that's where they actually lived. And so that was kind of, I found that rather interesting. So the two species were known as ancients and shorts. So the ancients were the really tall ones that Obi Wan talked to, and then also there was the short ones. And the short ones, known as the shorts, they were the ones that would have handled all the menial tasks, like working on ships and fueling them, and all of that kind of stuff. They were the ones that did all that kind of stuff. So, but there was definitely a level of respect between them. So that was pretty interesting. Uh, so let's go through the Osik. Since there are no trees on Utapau, the Powans and the Utai use bone instead of timber as one of their planet's essential structure materials. The skeletons of large vertebrate creatures such as Ruhau whales that roam the underground world ocean provide plenty of bones that are large enough to support load-bearing beams. Nearly all of Utapau's animal skeletons are used in the bone mining industry, which also hacks out the fossilized bones of the ancient creatures and processes them for building giant constructions. Uh, these gave the rise of the creation of the unique form of architecture known as Osik, a fusion of both Powan and Utai building styles and a fine example of their peaceful existence. So that's what this is here. Very much built out of bone and whatnot. So, obviously they probably brought in some Duracrete or something like that to build a lot of this other stuff, but they use bones for a lot of that kind of stuff. So, pretty interesting. The long history. The name Utapau dates right back to the early days of Star Wars when it was given to the desert planet in George Lucas's rough second draft of A New Hope. It also appeared as the original name of Naboo in The Phantom Menace. A sinkhole planet was conceived by Ralph McQuarrie as early as 1976 and finally realized on screen through a variety of techniques. Although miniatures form the basis of much of the environment, a digimat painting by Brett Northcutt was used to create Utapau's establishing shots, while ILM built two sinkholes. The largest was 6 meters deep and 4 meters wide. Holy crap. Lucas wanted the architecture inside the city to suggest a culture that accumulated over time. Working with designer Ryan Church, The model shop created over a dozen architectural concepts, allowing the Pau City's interior to adapt by adding extra details. So one of the things with the city is that it talks about it here is built into the large sinkhole, right? City features a total of 11 levels. The highest are occupied by government and its port administration, while seawater processing plants, heavy industry, and mining can be found in the lower levels. To ease the transport between the levels, the exterior of the city features many large and small landing platforms. The city is able to gain a lot of its power from wind energy harvested by large turbines that profit from the winds sweeping through the sinkholes. The bottom of Pal City leads to the grottos and underground pools of Corinth. Pal City is also the home of Booper Torskol Abbey Devices, maker of the Porax 38 starfighter. So, see if we can find. There we go. So, throughout the centuries, Pauans and Utah have managed to tame most of Utapau's native wildlife. The Raptavian dactylians, uh, with the average wingspan of 24 meters. So that's this flying creature that we saw here. This flying creature here, right? And then soar through the skies, while huge lizards known as varactals. So the varactals are the ones that Obi Wan rode, and I remember when I played Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO, when they brought that out as a speeder that you could get. Everybody just wanted that. They were so awesome to have. They were just kind of, I mean, they reacted the same as anything else that you'd ride. You didn't jump any farther, or didn't go any faster. All that kind of stuff. It just looked like it just seemed much cooler to do. To use. So that was pretty cool. So there you go. That is the Utapau. Now let's talk about some artificial gravity and the artificial gravity generators. So artificial gravity is as much the key to practical interstellar spaceflight as hyperdrive engines that propel starships into hyperspace. So the big thing with artificial gravity is that the effects of gravity diminishes with distance, and when the ship heads off into open space, it and everything inside, including the crew, will soon start to feel lighter. When the ship's far enough, so you become weightless, right? So basically, what they had to do was they had to create these gravity generators, and so that way you wouldn't notice when you were leaving planets. So the gravity gravity generators would kind of spool up the farther you get away, and it would get stronger. And so they have basically what's known as what do they call it? Standard gravity, and then you're either plus or minus standard gravity. And so you can use it as a obviously you're countering the weightlessness, right? So that's important. Um, and the generators are tied to the ship's computer and sensors so that they can make minute adjustments to the onboard gravitational force as the vessel under the influence of external gravity fields. So basically, everything in space has some level of gravity field, so the ship may need to create more or less or what have you. And it has to create a couple different forces, right? So it creates a downward force because it needs to hold you to the deck plate, but then it also creates this forward force because that way when you're accelerating, you're not thrown back into your seats and that kind of stuff. So that's very important. Um, so you can use that as a gravitational, or excuse me, acclimation aid. So if you're going to a planet with stronger gravity, you can kind of increase the gravitational uh, uh, fields on your ship, and that way when you get there, you're a bit more used to that level of gravity, or you could decrease it so you get kind of used to the lighter gravity. So it just kind of depends on how you want to do that. So The important thing with the Millennium Falcon, and uh, one of the really interesting things here that I thought was interesting was let me go through this passage here. So there's an old pirate's mantra that if you can take out a spaceborne starship's artificial gravity generators, you stand a good chance of capturing her with minimal damage. This is because if the generators are disabled, the zero gravity environment of space will take over. With pilot and crew disoriented and probably even floating off their stations, the pirates are then free to help themselves to the ship's cargo before either commandeering the vessel or setting her free to raid again another day. Fear of sabotage and piracy led the Carillion Engineering Corporation to resist publicizing the details of the YT-1300 freighter's artificial gravity generator. CEC even kept the make and model of the generators out of the ship's owner's handbook and the technical manuals that followed, for fear that the information could be used against its spacefaring customers. Only authorized CEC agents know exactly what artificial gravity generators are installed in the YT-1300. It's still less clear if the Millennium Falcon's gravity generators bear any relation to the original equipment. Starship pundits, however, guess there were at least one large generator and two small ones aboard. The larger will be needed to cover the bulk of the ship, including the cockpit and the hold, giving a sense that the floor is down, while there must be at least one smaller generator to cover the topside quad laser cannons and another for the belly gun turret. So, yeah, that was I thought that was kind of interesting, the fact that they hid that so people didn't know what it was, where it was, and all that kind of stuff, so you decrease the likelihood that somebody would take it out and pillage it. So that was kind of cool. So filming in zero gravity, if you haven't heard about this, it's rather interesting. So back in 1979, Star Wars question and answer books about space acknowledged the science of gravity, telling young readers inside spacecraft circling Earth objects seem weightless. They are said to be zero G. When you drop something, it floats. Astronauts float too if they're not attached to the craft. Humans are used to the Earth's gravity. Zero G affects our minds and bodies. Some astronauts feel sick at first uh, when they circle inside the spacecraft. They cannot work as quickly or as well as usual. They must do special exercises to keep in good physical condition. But artificial gravity has been the stuff of science fiction for as long as the genre has existed, and its existence is a convenient option for producers who know that filming a zero-G environment is very costly, and in most cases would get in the way of the storytelling. One of the first movies that attempted to show low gravity realistically was 1968's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Coping with weightlessness was part of the story, although critical scientists were keen to point out inaccuracies caused by limitations in movie technology. In 1995, Apollo 13 tried to go one better by filming some of its effects inside an aircraft that NASA uses for astronaut training, which can send actors into free fall for short periods. For the longer takes in the movie Gravity from 2013, actor Sandra Bullock was suspended from 12 practically invisible wires that allowed her entire body to be manipulated by puppeteers, with the scenery added in digital post-production. So this is a KC-135, and it's used to study the effects of zero-G. Is nicknamed the Weightless Wonder. It's also nicknamed the Vomit Comet. So what it does, it flies in parabolic, like this, flies in parabolic uh, flight pattern. So go up and you'll experience a lot of gravity, and then when it dives down real steep, you'll actually be weightless for a short time because of the fact that you when it dives down so fast that you're actually going to come off your seat or what have you. So it gives you the sensation of being weightless, uh, particularly in the relationship to the plane itself. So Yeah, pretty interesting. So I think that might be it. That is it. So that is all of issue 30. I actually did not bounce over to the data portion, the details portion of it. So let's go ahead and bounce over to there, and then we'll do our closeout. Okay, here we are with the data slash details portion of the bonus issue. So we are on issue 30. We only did it in a single, basically a single take. We worked on the framework, and total record time was 15 minutes and 6 seconds. We ended up with even though we only did one take, we only had we had one video and one capture. And again, the total record time was 15 minutes and 6 seconds. Total build time was 15 minutes and 6 seconds, but the video time was only 15 minutes and 1 second. So we cut out a little bit of time there. And we added 12 screws. So that's pretty interesting. So again, there's our video count. And then if we come here, we can see that we did 15 minutes and 6 seconds, and we had 0 time in regards to off-camera work. So that takes our total time of 47 build videos. Our total time, video time is 24 hours and 28 minutes. Total build time is 77 hours and 31 minutes. We have a new record for shortest issue, 15 minutes and 1 second. So that's kind of exciting. And total screws is 184. We didn't glue anything. We didn't use any micro brushes, none of that kind of stuff. So pretty straightforward this issue. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that. And let's go close out this video. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that, the data portion, the details portion, and I'll continue doing that. So again, that was issue 30 and 31. It's going to be probably more of the same, so nothing terribly exciting, but this last issue, as you saw, was the shortest, setting the record for the shortest build video that I've had so far, and this next one would probably be right there with it, but I have some ideas to kind of stretch that out a little bit, and hopefully you'll enjoy that, what my ideas consist of. So with that, I want to say thank you very much for watching, everyone, and may the force be with you always.